Breaking news tonight. Let's bring in Senate Minority Whip, Republican from South Dakota, Senator John Thune. Senator, thanks for being here. I want to start with this breaking news about the Iranian proxies firing missiles again on U.S. troops. And Fox News is learning that more U.S. forces may have been injured as a result of these new rocket attacks just in the past hour in eastern Syria. The Pentagon is assessing the response, but we expect the U.S. to respond in kind, as we've seen this back and forth. Your thoughts on this and how dangerous the situation it is?
It is, and we should respond, Brett. There's no question about that. I think the one thing that these Iranian-backed proxies, these militias, this is now almost 80 attacks on American troops, service members in that region of the world, and I think we've responded 3 times kinetically. I think you have to ask the question: why isn't this administration taking stronger steps in response to these attacks? So I certainly hope that we are. And we'll be anxious to see as more information comes in about this most recent one. But clearly, what happened last night and the information that we got, the reporting that you all did earlier today, suggests that we did, in fact, respond, and we should. This is unprovoked. It's something that our military needs to take very seriously, and it's a reason why many of us, that we talk about these issues with respect to that region of the world, that it's incredibly dangerous, and Iran is behind most of the nefarious activity there.
We've seen this pattern here. Russia, knocks down a U.S. drone in international airspace. China obviously floats the spy balloon over the U.S., continental U.S. Iran, through its proxies, attacks U.S. forces. Republicans have talked for a while that weakness is provocative. Do you see this as an example of that?
I do. It's never our strength that tempts our adversaries. It's our weakness, and I think they're testing the Biden administration. And I think so far, if you look at it based on the continued and repeated attacks that we're experiencing there, they failed the test. And this administration is, I think, perceived on the world stage to be operating from a position of weakness. And anytime that happens, you're going to tempt people. The Iranians, the Russians, the Chinese. There are a lot of folks around the world right now, Brett, that are paying a lot of attention to what's happening here and seeing how the United States responds. And when these are unprovoked attacks against American service members and obviously this American civilian contractor yesterday, we've got to respond strongly. That's the only way that you meet these types of threats, is you've got to meet them with strength. And I think this administration, as I've said before, and I think many of us have said, is perceived on the world stage to be operating from a position of weakness.
I want to talk to you about TickTock. The CEO up on Capitol Hill yesterday. A lot of talk about whether the U.S. is going to go down this banning TickTock road. You have a bill, a proposal with Senator Warner. Others have signed on. How serious do you think this is as a security threat, number one, and how tough is it to get 150 million Americans to step away from something that they've been using and some enjoying?
Well, one, it's very serious, and two, it is a challenge to get that many Americans to step away from something that they enjoy. But I think they've got to understand. I mean, these are national security threats, and there wasn't anything their CEO said yesterday in response to questions at that hearing that in any way assuage the concerns that we have about the information that they're gathering, and if asked by the CCP to make it available to them, that they would. They've got back doors to harvest and get this information. We know for a fact that they're doing it, and we need direct action and response. And the bill that you mentioned that I'm associated with is a way of dealing not just with TikTok, the threat of today, but also the threats of the future, because there's going to be another app, another platform, another technology that's coming in from an adversary country like China, and we need to have a way of being able to respond. And if that means banning or blocking that particular app, then so be it. It might be something else. It might be mitigating it, but it's got to be in consultation with the intelligence community. We got to get more of that information declassified so the American people understand the threat that these types of apps pose to their individual information and data. And I think sometimes, people do. They use these apps and think there's no consequence. But when you're dealing with a Chinese-owned company, and ByteDance owns TickTock, they are a wholly owned subsidiary of the CCP. And what that means is that any information the CCP wants from some of these companies, they're going to get it. And I think the American people, as much as they may like these apps, need to understand that. And there's always going to be another one. And we've got very creative people in this country. They'll figure out how to, get their content to the users. But we need to respond, I think, very aggressively to not only this threat, but potential threats in the future.
I need a short answer if you could, Senator, but
Yeah.
I've heard Democrats, I've heard Republicans up on Capitol Hill. I haven't heard a ton from President Biden on this particular issue.
Right, and I hope that he gets more engaged. We've got, as I said, we've got an approach, a legislative approach. There are others out there, but we need action by this administration, by our leadership and the Congress, to make it very clear to adversary countries that we take this seriously, and if it poses a national security risk, we are going to respond.
Senator John Thune, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Brett.